Harness Racing New Zealand, a review of the structure and obviously what you've done around costs and your own staff. Give us a quick overview of that, Peter.
Yeah, look, so the staff have been fantastic. So for the initial period, like many, our people moved to a 4-day working week. We were able to get the wage subsidy, as most businesses have in that period. As of actually yesterday, the vast majority of our team are now down to 50%. So they are only working half time until just a couple of days before we resume racing. And in some cases, they'll top that up if they have annual leave balances available. In other cases, they won't, and they'll literally be working for 50% of their wages. I can also add that the board are taking no fees through to the end of the season. So we've certainly taken our responsibility seriously, as many businesses have, both in racing and outside of the racing industry.
Peter, that raises a really interesting question. And this is the most asked question in New Zealand at the moment. If you're cutting expenses and staff are on halves and some of your contractors have been laid off in the meantime, what about RITA? We haven't seen many major cuts there. We've seen some contractors laid off. Everybody in racing seems to want cuts from the TAB, staff reductions and reductions in expenses, particularly at the upper management level, where there are suggestions there are a lot of people on over $100,000 a year. What is Harness Racing New Zealand's attitude to that?
Well, first thing I'd say, Mick, is that RITA's a big business, and I think people sometimes lose sight of just how big a business it is. You need people to run it, and you're going to have people who know what they're doing to be able to do that. But I think in the broader picture, if there was going to be less money available, then all of us have a responsibility to make sure that the vast majority of that gets through to participants. So that's at regional level, it's at code level, and it's at club level. We all need to be doing our bit. Once we understand what that funding level looks like, then of course there's an expectation that RITA will be looking to cut costs if they can, but that doesn't stop with them. There's no point RITA doing that and then the rest of the industry doesn't. So all of us will have a responsibility to understand what that looks like. And my team asked me that very question just today, what does it look like? I can't tell them the answer to that now, but what I can say is that we need to look forward and have a key job. The only reason Harness Racing New Zealand exists is to support the industry, and that has to be our focus.
Peter, I want to ask you a question, because one of the biggest complaints I get is that some of the communication from bosses in racing hasn't been very good, because they have to use terms which are technical terms or corporate terms which people who are watching this may not understand. It's not their cup of tea to know what an MPI is or a JV and all that sort of stuff. I'll put this very simply. Peter, is the game stuffed? Because there's people sitting in pubs in the South Island or at their local club and whatever they're going to be heading back to in the next couple of weeks, and they'll be saying, the game's stuffed, the game's stuffed. It's all done. As a numbers man, is the game stuffed, or is this something we can get back to the level it is now and improve in the future? Do you actually think we can do that?
Absolutely, I do. Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that could happen and that I couldn't make a contribution to it. The reason I'm here in Harness Racing New Zealand is because I love harness racing. It's as simple as that. I could be involved in any number of industries as I have in the past, but like I'm a true believer. What I would say is that it won't happen without a collective effort to achieve it. It's not a matter of sitting and waiting for Harness Racing New Zealand to say, well, what are you going to do? I met with the clubs a couple of weeks ago, and that's one of my challenges to them. Don't wait for us to tell you. Come and tell us. What do you want to do at your club level, in your region? And everybody has to have that same mindset, and nobody can be in a position where we believe that we're owed a living, because we're not. We've got to provide product that people want to bet on, because that's what pays the bills. And so we've all got a part to play in that, in terms of how we program, our rating, how we prepare our horses, not looking for the easy kill when you go out at $1.10 and win on an easy race. Sure, it's an easy kill for you, but actually nobody bets on it. So for us, we've all got a part to play. It doesn't matter which part of the industry you're in, we've got a part to play in getting it to where we all want it to be.
You raise a very interesting point. You talk about a part to play. The government have a part to play. Now, this is quite complicated. We hope the industry would get some government funding, like many other big industries, in New Zealand being the obvious one, to help it get over this next 3 to 6 month period, to help it get over the tricky part. Now, you guys, as I understand it, can't apply for that. So I take it the three codes together as the racing industry have used RITA as their conduit to apply to the government for a relief package, for want of a better word, or an economic stimulus package. So can I get this straight? Harness Racing New Zealand don't do that themselves. The three codes have gone at asking the government for assistance as one unit, and then whatever money comes through would be distributed later. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, in the sense that RITA are the conduit between the industry and the government, and that makes perfect sense. That they have been for some time, and it makes sense that they will continue to do so. So over the course of a year, we would have contact with the Minister's office and with other MPs for that matter. But in this case, you imagine the number of people that are talking to government. You know, as an example, MB last week got 20,000 emails in 2 days asking them about what you could and can't do under alert level 3. So it just wouldn't be helpful for us to get in the middle of the process. What we need to do is be supportive of RITA as we can in terms of providing the information that we've asked for, doing that in a timely way, and then having belief in the process.
Peter, have you got the right people around you at Harness Racing New Zealand to guide us through the next 12 months? A lot of people say this to me, it's been going on for years, so it's not nothing to do with you or anybody else for that matter. You know, it's always they're not good enough, and there's too many this and there's too many that. I'm not saying whether there are or not, but are the right people at Harness Racing New Zealand to take this forward, or have some of them been there too long, as some people would seem to bowl up?
Yeah, there's always a balance to be had between institutional knowledge, and I can tell you in times like this, that institutional knowledge is hugely valuable to us. So there's a balance for that, and then there's a balance to have some new thinking. And if you look at the board, I think we've trimmed that down to 8 over the last 6 months or so. And the 2 new independent directors are making a real difference. They don't come from harness racing background, and I think that's refreshing. So both Phil and Victoria both had very senior level jobs in business, and they ask great questions of me. Sometimes I don't always know the answer, Mick, and that's a healthy thing. They're asking good questions, and the dynamics around the board table have shifted, and I think they've shifted in a positive way.
Peter, you mentioned the big dance, Cup Week. It's the week that everybody in racing looks forward to the most. I know it's impossible. It's a crystal ball, but you have a better version of this crystal ball than some of the people watching this will have. Will we have a Cup Week in Christchurch? And do you have any indications of whether we'll be allowed to have a crowd at Cup Week in Christchurch, or is that a question you possibly can't answer?
I can't, except that I would say that we're going to have much bigger issues as a country if we get to Cup Week and we still can't have a crowd. So I think there'll be other discussions that we'll all be having if we're there by then. You know, I think most people would acknowledge the government's done a fantastic job, you know, to get to a case where we've had single-figure cases, I think, for 10 days in a row now. That's every indication that we will be racing. Certainly with the public able to be there in Cup Week. It's absolutely vital for us. It's vital for the club, and from a Canterbury perspective, it's a huge social occasion, not just racing. So that we're making our plans on the basis that we will be racing with the public there, the 22,000 people there, hopefully, and hopefully a fantastic experience, as it always is.